Hi, everyone. In this short video, I'm going to discuss with you some very important information, which is quite relevant to international business, although you may not think so at first when you first see it. We're going to be talking about the PISA surveys, PISA, Program for International Scholarly Accomplishment, something like that. You'll see the actual translation when I put the slides up. But this is a survey that is done by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is a very well-regarded international organization. It consists of 37 member countries, one of which is the United States. But in the surveys that it does every 3 years, the OECD examines or surveys high school students in their junior years of some 60 countries, so more than the membership of the organization. Folks like our Secretary of Education look forward eagerly to the results of this survey because, among other things, it tells us how well our schooling systems are doing compared to schooling systems in other countries. And because these are high school juniors, and because it takes about a year or a little longer to compile all this information, we don't really see the results until a year after the survey is done, or maybe a little later. It's a big statistical compiling project. So the folks who took the survey as juniors last year are getting ready to go into college this year. So it tells us, among other things, how well prepared the students that are coming into our colleges from high schools are. And if we look at these surveys over a number of years, we can see trends in the preparation of our students in reading, mathematics, science. In previous years, there were other topics, and every once in a while, special topics are surveyed, such as scientific literacy, for instance, or problem solving. One of those studies was done a couple surveys ago, and I'll just show you the results of that one so you get a general idea. But the lesson that you should take from what we're going to look at is the preparation of students who are going into universities here and in other countries, because based on that preparation, they can move faster or slower. They can learn more, if you will, and therefore accomplish more when they get out of college, because they'll be able to accumulate more knowledge unless things are rectified while they're in college. And we're learning that's very difficult to do. So with that, let me just get the basic information up here, and we can get started. And what I need to do, of course, is press my little share button here and hope that I get lucky. There it is. Okay, so this first slide simply introduces to you what I mentioned. It's the Program for International Student Assessment. I'm not sure that I got that exactly right when I told you the first time, but it's a worldwide study by OECD, and it's intended to evaluate the performance of 15-year-old high school juniors. Um, I'm going to have to uh, see if I can modify this for a minute. Okay. Um, so here is a summary of the results from that survey. The most recent survey was done in 2018. Remember that the results would not have come out until 2019 or early 2020. So this, even though it was done a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, almost, is the most recent information from this program that we have. What you can see is that the Asian countries are doing pretty well. The US is not doing as well as they are. So in reading, China came up first. The maximum score is 600. So the average score in China was 556 out of 600. Singapore came in second, but then if you look at the footnote here and come down at the bottom, Macau, which is simply another province of China, and Hong Kong, another one, were number 3 and 4. So out of the top 5 spots, China accumulated 4, and Singapore has a lot of Chinese influence in it. Now, bear in mind that the ranks here are not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see that number 6, however, was Canada, our northern neighbor, and it scored, if you will, 52 out of 60, or 520 out of 60, 600. Pretty good. And then not 7, but number 13 came the United States with a score, average score of about 500, 505. So about 10% lower than China. China with 550, US with 505, so a difference of about 50 points or 10%. China came in, Russia came in much lower with a rank of 31 out of some 60 countries, and Mexico did very poorly. The US is in the top half, if that makes you feel any better, and really the top quarter of all the countries that were surveyed, but certainly it has plenty of room to grow before it catches up with China. Now, what's interesting is that several years ago, pardon me, when this survey began, the United States was ranked at number 1. So there's been a shifting of positions here, and the trend is not favorable. When we move over to the center panel, we see something a little more distressing. We see that we're looking at mathematics and mathematic aptitudes and abilities. And again, the number 1 rank was held by China, number 2 by Singapore, and then number 3, 4, and 5. So 4 out of the top 5, I guess 5 out of the, 4 out of the top 5 positions were held by China. And its average score this time was almost perfect. Maximum score 600, the average score 591. That's really an accomplishment. And there was quite a difference between number 1 and number 2, as you can see. Once again, we see something rather interesting, and that is after these Asians take the lead, you can see over in the reading, Canada came in number 6, well above the United States, even though it spends much less on education per capita than the United States does. It dropped down to a position of 12 in the case of mathematics. And its average score then was 512. But this time, as opposed to reading, in math, the Russians, who do emphasize engineering a lot, didn't do too well, came in at 30 with a score of 488, far below China, but a little bit higher than the United States, which had an average score of 478 out of 600. The difference between the US score and China's was what, about 113. Give or take, I'd have to do it on a calculator, but 113 divided by 600 would be something in the order of maybe 20%. So it's a pretty substantial change. Not only that, the average score of all countries in the survey was 489, and you can see that the US fell below average. So among the world's, I don't know whether you'd call it industrialized countries because Mexico is included, but among the countries that were surveyed, which are most of the countries that you've heard of, the U.S. is in the lower half, and insofar as mathematical ability is concerned. And this is not somebody's attempt to make the U.S. look bad. This is actual results. There's just no way OECD is perfectly objective. They don't hold a political opinion. They don't take political opinions. They just do their work. Mexico, on the other hand, 409. That's really tragic. But so is the U.S. score here. This is not a very happy score. When we go over to science, the U.S. comes out a little better. Instead of a rank of 37, rank of 18. Still not what we would call superior. Again, China comes out on top with a score of 590 out of 600, remember. The average score was 100 points lower than China's. Singapore came in number 2 again, and then Macau number 3 and Hong Kong number 4. You can see how the players sort of line up here. And a little bit like the reading score, Canada surprisingly scores very high, even though the language is fairly similar. The French is spoken in Quebec, of course, but the Canadians don't spend as much on education as we do, but their high school students perform better than ours do. The US had a score of 502 out of 600, so 5.6, you can do the calculation, and about 88 points below China, which is a pretty significant proportion. And again, Mexico had a very poor score. The reason I put Canada and Mexico here is because they are our neighbors to the north and south, and collectively the US, Canada, and Mexico represent what we refer to as North America, as you know. So we can draw a variety of conclusions here, but our arch rivals are particularly China does a lot better in its high school performance than the US does. Russia is not superior. It is in math, but it doesn't matter because they're both terrible. And this has some tremendous implications for what can be accomplished with the income students that move in to universities in these countries, because obviously if the students are better prepared coming out of high school, they can move faster and further in college and university academics. So with this respect, or in this respect, China looks like it's prepared to perform very well in science and technology and so forth. So it's no surprise that we see such rapid progress in China in technology, by way of example. Russia, surprisingly, is not a superior performer. I thought that Russia would do better because previously I was aware that Russia placed a great emphasis on technology. Remember, they're the first country that put a landing craft on the moon and an astronaut on the moon. So my expectation was that Russia would do better, but since those lofty years, Russia seems to have sunk down to a lower position. It's very concerning that the American students don't do any better in mathematics. But to be very honest with you, we read in the newspapers and in the news magazines all the time how American students are having difficulty with mathematics. And there is the proof in the international record. What really impressed me is Canada. In my international work, I've done a lot of work in Canada, as well as China and Russia and Mexico. But in Canada, I just find that people, both in the eastern provinces and the western provinces, seem to pick things up pretty fast. They get the idea fairly fast. They can read technical instruction manuals. They can handle scientific instrumentation very quickly. They can adapt very quickly, faster than most of my clients in the United States and their workforces. So these results ring true to me based upon my personal experience. And then you can see the comment about Mexico. I think Mexico is clearly not in a position to add to the technology capabilities of North America for quite some time, because it doesn't have the technical manpower to do that. It has labor that can work in auto factories that are built by American companies in Mexico in order to save labor costs, but we're probably not going to see any new high-tech adaptations of automotive design coming out of Mexico, but it would not surprise me if we did see those things coming out of Canada, and in fact, we already have. There's quite an automotive industry in Canada. So and again, just before I move from this slide, let me remind you that we're looking at this in a course in international business. But what I see here is a real challenge for American business. It's more likely that we'll see more artificial intelligence, more robotics, more computer-controlled manufacturing systems. Why? Because American business doesn't have a lot of opportunities to the contrary. And even though those trends exist, we need people who understand this technology and can exploit it. And so there's a real challenge in the United States to improve the mathematical and scientific, as well as the literate capabilities of students and the students who graduate and go into industry. This is a big challenge for American industry. Okay, let me make that go away. I'm sure you're glad to see it go away. And let me see if I can just bring up one other slide before we call it a night. And I hope this is the one. Well, that's not the one for sure. That's the device that I launched this system with. Let me try this again. And first I want to make sure that I still have it. I do. So I'm surprised that I could not find it. There it is. Okay. I mentioned when this video began that in prior years, OECD has studied other topics in addition to students' accomplishments in verbal, mathematic, and scientific skills. So this one was done back in, golly, I guess in 2008, 10 years prior. This was based just on the United States position back then, which was, about 15 years ago. But the portion, and in this particular case, OECD looked into more than just high school juniors, and it found that the portion of 25 to 34-year-olds, those who were in their prime career years, who held college degrees, the US ranked number 9. Now, I'm afraid that that impressed too many people because what we're not looking for is a larger portion of people who've gone to college, although that's what the politicians are emphasizing. What we need are college graduates who are more capable. But based on findings like this, there was back then a big push to get more people into college, whether they would be able to benefit fully from a college education or not. The number or the proportion of people who were employed in science, technology, and engineering among those prime career year folks per 100,000, that is the concentration of science, technology, and engineering people. The US ranked 23rd, and the percent of folks in that age category who had college degrees in science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing was a couple points lower than that. So the US way back 15 years ago was at a disadvantage. We may not have realized the significance of that disadvantage, but we certainly are today. And then the survey results itself, mathematics, we still were struggling. Our rank back then was 25th. Science, 17th. Reading was a little less, 16 rank. I'm not sure, but as I recall, when we looked at the results from 2018, it was up to number 13, but pretty much the same situation. Back then, studies also were done of scientific literacy, the ability to read scientific journals and get the meaning from them. And there you can see the US ranked 21st. Mathematical literacy, no surprise, exactly the same as its rank in math at 25. So kind of hard to learn mathematics if you can't read a math book. And then there it is in problem solving. I mentioned earlier, There were only 29 countries included in that particular survey, and the US ranked 24th. So what can we draw in the way of conclusions from this information? And the conclusion, quite simply, is that the U.S. Industrial structure, U.S. industry, has a real challenge because the people who enter those disciplines when they move from high school to college have real challenges. And so do the colleges, because they have to take folks that have less comprehension, less skill in these areas, and offer them as much in the way of new skills as possible. But if you've got students that are already pretty well advanced in those disciplines, as they are in China today, then those folks can move further, faster. And then that's the problem, because they can do things in industry that students from graduates from universities in other countries can't. Now, we have some excellent universities in this country, and I think that in those universities, some of that shortfall is made up. How much, we don't know, but we certainly know where things stand as folks are moving out of high school, and that's what this video was meant to share with you. This information is not shared very often, and I'm sure you can imagine why. But it is what it is. These are the facts. And so this means that American industry is going to have to use a lot of artificial intelligence, a lot of robotics, a lot of automatic process controls, and still will depend upon people, technologically informed people, to make use of those systems, but maybe not make the actual decisions. So there it is. It's a challenge, and you might want to give some thought to it. My own perspective is that your challenge is not over when you leave Mount Olive. Your challenge is to continue to inform yourself about, among other things, technological issues, and be as well informed as possible, because in corporations in other countries have people that are informing themselves, and maybe when they get out of university, maybe just a little bit ahead of you. So for you to get to be able to have a good job and to be able to advance in your career, it's going to depend upon how capable your company is to compete with those companies in other countries where capabilities may be a little more advanced. So definitely, when you leave the University of Mount Olive, don't stop learning. Try to keep yourself as informed as possible in technology, and among other things, read a lot. Try to get better at comprehending what you read, because that's what they're doing on the other side of the world. So with that, I'll let you go. This was a short little video just to make you aware of a real challenge that is being faced by American industry today. And with that, I